Good evening, everyone. This is Melinda Murillo, and we will be discussing Lab 4, our second hack, part 1. On this slide, I just did a command ping scan, nmap 192.168.56.0 and this is showing you, as you can see, my IP address, which was 192.168.56.105. On this slide, I just did a command of an operating system check. It's a basic scan, nmap dash O 192.168.56.105, which is my IP address, and it just gives you the open ports. On this slide, as you can see, I ran another command, which is an EXMA scan, nmap minus SX, my IP address 192.168.56.105. On slide 6, I ran another command, which was an intrusive scan, which is nmap dash p dash dash a, and the IP address 192.168.56.105. And as you can see, this one gives you a little bit more information on this scan. On slide 7, I did a command of CVE detection scan, which is an nmap-pn-script vuln of 192.168.56.105. And as you can see, it gives you a list of vulnerabilities and a little bit more information. In slide A, we did the command nicto scan, and as you can see, I installed the nicto, and then I did a command of nicto -h 192.168.56.105, and it gives you some vulnerabilities. It shows you a list of the vulnerabilities. In this slide, slide 9, it shows you the Nessus web application scan. It actually found 22 vulnerabilities after installing the Nessus and running a basic scan. On this slide, it's showing you an OWASP ZAP automated scan. And as you can see, I picked one of the vulnerabilities just to give you an example, which was SQL injection. On slide 11, I gives you a difference between NICTO versus OWASP ZAP. NICTO is a program that checks for web servers for potential security issues or vulnerabilities. OWASP is designed to find and test for security flaws in web applications. NICTO specializes in detecting vulnerabilities in web servers, detects setup issues on servers, and checks for outdated programs. NICTO isn't very discreet and can be easily detected in server logs. As far as OWASP ZAP, it looks for vulnerabilities within web applications, spots application level issues like unsafe data handling and poor authentication, can operate without being very noticeable. Both are helpful in different ways, and together they offer better insight, but don't rely on them without checking the results. On this next slide, it gives you a summary and identification of CSRF and XSS. CSRF is a serious security flaw that lets attackers pretend to be a legitimate user and carry out actions the user didn't intend. For example, they could change settings, post harmful content, or make unauthorized transactions. XSS, or cross-site scripting, is a security problem in websites where attackers can sneak in malicious code that runs in other users' browsers. These scripts can steal sensitive information like cookies, login tokens, or other private data. To stop XSS attacks, it's important to write secure code, carefully check and clean any user input, and keep an eye on the system for suspicious activity. By validating and sanitizing user data, you make sure nothing harmful like malicious scripts can get into your web pages. On this next slide, it's showing you 5 of the vulnerabilities that were identified. These 5 were clickjacking, directory browsing, SQL injection, XSS, and missing security headers. On this next slide is showing you the other 5 vulnerabilities that were identified, which is HTTP trace track methods, PHP outdated, OS security patch assessment, SSL certificate cannot be trusted, HTTP header information disclosure. On this slide, as you can see, is showing you the hypothesis, and it is the Keyoptrix 2 virtual machine is vulnerable because its web server doesn't use important security headers. These missing headers normally help protect against attacks like clickjacking and cross-site scripting. On this next slide is showing you the vulnerability map that I created. And as you can see, I put all the vulnerabilities that were found during the research, during scans, the tool classified, the intensity, the impact, and the course of action. On this slide, as you can see, I'm giving you a summary of the application of tools and techniques. The first application of tool is Nikto. Nikto is an open source web server scanner written in Perl. It identifies exploitable vulnerabilities and checks version information across roughly 1,200 server types with detailed checks for over 200 version-specific issues. The next one is OWASP-ZAP. It is a leading open source web application security scanner developed under the OWASP initiative. The third one is Nessus. Nessus is a widely used cybersecurity tool that serves multiple purposes, such as vulnerability scanning, configuration auditing, malware detection, and so forth. The next slide shows you techniques for root cause analysis. The root cause was the server was never set up to include basic security headers in its configuration. And the cause analysis used scanning tools to find out which version of the server is running, update the server settings or application middleware to add these missing headers, and set up a continuous integration check to make sure they're included after each deployment, and add automated tests in the continuous integration workflow that flag any missing headers and clearly document the security standards that all deployments should follow. In this next slide is showing you the root cause. I used HTTP trace track methods allowed and the root cause. Hypothesis, the vulnerability allowed the debugging functions to be enabled on the remote web server. And the root cause, lack of configuration or oversight and putting the server at risk of being exploited. And lastly, on this slide is giving you a disclosure of vulnerability. The legal standards, the industry standards, the ethical standards, and recommendations, and the reasons why behind that recommendation. Legal standards, organizations need to follow local laws when handling vulnerability disclosures. Ethical standards, security researchers should act in good faith, respect users' privacy, and avoid using vulnerabilities for personal gain. Industry standards, companies are encouraged to have clear processes for receiving and handling vulnerability reports. This includes secure channels for researchers to report issues, timely responses, and well-defined rules for bug bounty programs. Recommendation: it is crucial to maintain a balance between informing the public about a vulnerability and giving the vendor enough time to fix it safely as recommended by NIST. Reason: malicious actors could take advantage of this vulnerability, which might result in stolen data, monetary loss, or other major harm. And these are the references that were used for the presentation that I have presented to you. You all have a good evening. Thank you.